The first phase of Automation's version 4.3 is finally out. With this new update, they revised the engine designer to include power limits along with more engine blocks and bottom end materials. They've also added CVTs as a transmission option, including toe adjustments to suspension, tuning the gear ratios, more drivetrain systems, and so much more. Hey guys, it's TRIZE here, and let's get on with our build in version 4.3. So with the panel material of this elongated Corvette C5 body that we got here, I know this is the longer 2.9 meter wheelbase version, even though the real life Corvette is like 2.65 or something like that, but because it's America, I chose the big ass wheelbase version because why not? So the panel material, just like the real life C5 and C6 Corvettes, the panel material will be fiberglass with, I think the chassis type is monocoque with just regular old steel. And it's obvious, the engine placement is a front longitudinal instead of a mid transverse or longitudinal, kind of like the C8 Corvettes, like the new ones. And the front suspension, they are independent suspensions, but they do use a leaf type of suspension instead of just coilover springs. But a solid axle leaf isn't independent, so I'm not going to be choosing this, so it's just use double wishbones for the front, and same thing for the back. So for the engine, so here's this part for the new engine designer update as I build this engine. So whoopsies, a V90 degree V8 engine with the block materials listed here. So they got rid of just regular old magnesium like for my most powerful engines or anything real stupid of making such an engine. So we got the block material is just cast iron, aluminum heavy, light, and billet aluminum blocks. And for aluminum silicon, just aluminum silicon heavy and light. I might as well choose the heavy aluminum block with the bore set to the real-life rating of the GM LS1 at 99mm, with the stroke also increased to 92mm to get the engine size to 5,665 cubic centimeters or 5.7 liters, with a push rod heads made out of aluminum also. There's an all-aluminum engine. And heading to the bottom end, so looking at the variant capacity, we can increase like upbore the current engine if we want to. So what happens if we upbore it? So we could theoretically make this a 6-liter engine. Increase this by 3mm of the bore, but we can't upstroke the engine, unfortunately. What's the little, you can switch to flat plane? Okay, I never knew this. You can go from cross plane to regular cross plane to a flat plane type of crankshaft. From just regular old cast iron, heavy, forged light, regular forged, and forged heavy, and some regular billet steel and heavy billet steel flat planes. Really, you can't debore the engine? You just can't use the little box. Better fix this, guys. So let's start things off with a forged steel, regular forged steel crankshaft with forged light con rods and forged heavy pistons with a harmonic damper implemented. And a compression, it's set to the real-life rating. I think it's a 10.2 to 1 ratio with the RPM limit stayed as is to 6,200 RPM. So for the fuel system, it's going to be a multi-plane electronic fuel injector, a sequential, a single version with new performance mid-intake running on premium fuel. So for the exhaust headers and everything, I believe a tubular mid header, dual exhaust with we'll start off with 2 inches, 50.8mm for now. With high flow 3-way cat, straight through front and back 2 mufflers, and valve flow and some con rod stress right now. And like I mentioned, there is a new form of stress on here called power density stress. If I were to achieve more than 747 horsepower with this setup, then the engine will start to degrade in terms of reliability. So we need to change the con rods. So what if I just go to a forged setup at, oh man. So forged, regular forged, yeah, it decreases RPM with a regular forged. So forged light, I believe, which also, increase the con rods also improves, or not improves, but implements stress to the crankshaft because it's a more heavier type of con rod setup that is hampering the crankshaft. If I were to use forged heavy, this would probably break the crankshaft or damn near, well, it stresses out even more. What if I were to just use cast light pistons? Now we're about close to the power density at 329 because of using lightweight cast pistons. So let's increase the spring stiffness quite a bit. I believe the power begins to drop off at like 5,700 RPM, but now we're almost up to the power density. So I'm over the power density limit just like for the heck of it. What if we were to just use like nitromethane or some other crazy fuel, explosion? So if we're going to use nitromethane for an example only, so here we're at 756 horsepower even, and 576 horsepower is the power reliability threshold, and we're down 5% of reliability. So theoretically, in terms of like horsepower for this to break apart the actual engine, we could probably get like maybe 1500, 2000 horsepower before the engine actually blows up because of power stress. So right now I'm getting pretty close to the desired like power rating in real life at 345 horsepower at 5600 RPM, which is the real power rating for this engine, and I believe the torque is like 350 at 45 or 4400 RPM. So we're getting close right now. I believe we just improved the manifold a little bit. Oh, we're getting pretty close already. And just up the quality. We're already 345. I could probably call this engine as is, so we get the power rating. Can I get a better... Oh, here we go. Or the power rating at 345 horsepower at 5600 RPM, and a torque rating of 356.1 pounds-feet of torque at 4500 RPM. So by using the quality sliders for the first time in a while for a general, like, engine build and all that stuff, we got plenty of torque stress at like 600, 500, and 700 pounds-feet of torque with all the pistons, conrods, rods, and crankshafts, but we do got some RPM stress, like close to it being stressed out in terms of the pistons, not so much of the crankshaft or conrods, rods, and really not so much of the crankshaft. And power density, 531 horsepower, we're not even close to that mark whatsoever. And going over to the testing section, this is the new dyno graph where you can set an RPM target limit and whatever throttle setting that you want. So what if we were to click on start here? Is this a pull? Nope. So you could manage the throttle right here and the RPM target. So what if we were to change the throttle? Okay. So we got the hydrocarbons, kind of like the noxious gases and greenhouse gases being affected by the exhaust of the engine. We can measure the hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, and nitrogen oxides. Catalytic converter efficiency about almost 4% and rising at 900 RPM, it's idle RPM. And if we were to improve the RPM target limit, so let's improve this. Okay, so not a whole lot of hydrocarbons and greenhouse gases at the higher RPM, but you do get it at around idle at full throttle. Now let's turn off the music and do a pull test real quick with the new dyno. So much quicker in terms of the dyno test, kind of like before where you got like the automatic test, slowly revs up, red lines, slowly drops, and then engine off. Because with this new update here, the new dyno update, they try to replicate a real-life dynometer as best that they can in this game as they try to implement it. And also here, you got the new statistics screen. You got the red line, bottom end, top end, and everything else with the engine as so. So for the drive type of this car, so here's the new drive type options. Of course, you got rear-wheel drive, 4x4, and the all-wheel drive, viscous, all-wheel drive helical, clutch, and advanced all-wheel drive system. And sucks again to front-wheel drive because of it being a longitudinal engine setup. So just like the Corvettes, new type of Corvette, rear-wheel drive with a manual 6-speed with... okay, here's a new gearing setup. First gear, 16 miles an hour. Hell no, buddy. Top speed, I think this used to go... I think it's 175 according to my online sources for this car. The spread, can I get an idea? No, I gotta wait. And I think they used a clutched LSD, and let's go on with the rest of the car. Such as the tires, so we're using some radial sports compound tires. The front tire was set to 245 millimeters, and the rear at 275 millimeters, with the following tire diameters. So I think it's 650 millimeters front and the back, with some 17-inch rims up front, and unlock the back to put some 18-inch rims to get the real tire diameter for the front at P245s, 45s, R17s, and the rear at P275s, 40 R18s, with some alloy rims. And for the brakes, I believe they used some Venedisc 2 pistons up front, with the front diameter set to 325 millimeters, with an also Venedisc single piston of 305 millimeters for the back. And for the under tray, I would probably choose a semi-clad for the sake of drag efficiency and everything, just more aerodynamics, with the brake airflow at a 20. And for the interior of this car, well, Corvettes never had a back seat, so get rid of the back seat, and let's use maybe a sport interior with a premium CD player. Even though this is GM back in the day, they pretty much used like the CD and the center console from like a Chevy Silverado. I think they did. Of course, GM, they just do part sharing. That's why they make cars so cheap. They just share parts from like a Silverado, a Chevy Equinox, Blazer, who knows. And a power steering, so I guess a variable hydraulic power steering with traction control and ABS brakes only with some standard issue 1990 standard safety standards. And lastly for the suspension, probably a progressive springs like the usual gas mount tube dampers and passive sway bars. Start off with sport preset and see where we're at. So sport preset, almost oversteering in terms of the sportiness factor at about 100%, 99.6 sportiness. And a bit in drivability oversteer, around 40 miles an hour and 50-ish in sportiness. And now that here's the toe-in section right here for the suspension. This is new to 4.3. So I can do either toe-in or toe-out for the front suspension, which can't even see actually taking effect, kind of like the camber section here. And for the brakes, goddamn, the rears are overpowered, so 53 to start off. Still not good enough? Okay, here we go. 50 would probably do. And up the fronts just a bit, I believe. Even though the sportiness factor is at 0.4. Let's try to eliminate that. So 60s up front, let's 50-60 brake pad type. And drop the rears just a smidge to 48%. And good enough. 0% brake fade for drivability, sportiness, and utility of his 62 to 0 according to game. 33.4 meters. Fair enough. And you know what? Let's change the gearing ratio. I see this also online of the gear ratio for a C5, like standard C5 Corvette, not the Z06 model. So starting off with gear 1, I think, look at here, it's at 2.66 for the first gear. Then gear 2 is at a 178 right here. Gear 3 is at a 130, 1.30. Gear 4 is exactly 1.00. Fifth gear is at a 0.74, and finally gear 6 is 0.50 with the final drive. Let's take a peek at this. It's at a 3.42. If I were to drop this, will this drop the top speed? Let's see. I guess so. It claims we're going to be capped at like 5th gear. I'll probably roll with this setup, but I don't know if this is really going to be the truth in BeamNG.drive. Let's see here. Let's make some final adjustments to the car and prepare to design it. I think I'm pretty much good with the general tune, the car, and everything, like the suspension and all our deal. Same thing with the gearing ratio too. So anyways, for this part of the video with this new designer UI, kind of like got a new design window, that's interesting. So let's prepare to design this wannabe C5 Corvette in a time-lapse of me designing the car to make it kind of like a Corvette with the front end, the sides, and the rear end. So let's start off the time-lapse video of me designing the car right now. So for the design of this car, I kind of speed ran this design of loosely replicating the C5 Corvette as it took me an hour to complete. For the front, I added a pair of pop-up headlights that don't work in BeamNG unfortunately. I also added the bottom headlights and turn indicators on the front bumper, along with adding a basic front lip, these 4 vents that cool the engine and the brakes, the license plate, a custom hood scoop, and the Corvette logos on the front, sides, and back. For the sides, I used the same door handles and side mirrors from its real-life counterpart. However, I made some changes with the side vents, especially with the ones on the front quarter panel. There's some complicated body molding that can be achieved to replicate this, but I settled on adding a basic vent fixture and a single chrome bar that runs from the vent to the end of the door. I also capped off the sides with this black bottom vent that cools the rear brakes. Now for the rear, I used the 2 pairs of brake lights that's accurate to the Corvette. Same thing with the lip spoiler, the license plate mounting with reverse lights, and the name of the car. I also added a basic rear diffuser to make way for the dual exhaust pipes on the bottom. Finally, I repainted the car from the default automation red color to this blue color. So after getting everything done with this build, here's how it came out. This is the 1997 Serpent Lafayette. The 5th gen model of this knockoff Corvette is longer than its original counterpart. It's powered by the legendary LS1, which is reliable and performance heavy, which is good for on and off the track. Alrighty, so finally I got the Serpent Lafayette, the wannabe Chevy Corvette C5 up in here, completely built with the rear end that damn near looks like a Corvette, and the front with the unfortunately inoperable pop-up headlights. Well, the pop-up headlights, I can replicate them, but like if I demonstrate here with the headlights, these only work, so pretend that the pop-up lights are stuck, which what the government kind of feared about with pop-up headlights in pretty much any vehicle. And I believe also, too, the Corvette, the C5, was the last American vehicle to have pop-up headlights to be sold in the United States. So anyways, going one click over to the testing section, we have a brand new track that's been added to the game, other than the automation test track, the airfield, which is basically, it's still the same, like, design with the Top Gear track. We got the new Ellisbury Tri-Oval Grand Prix GT circuit and the junior course, so look at the Ellisbury Tri-Oval. We got the wannabe Pocono kind of triangular shaped Tri-Oval with a huge ass parking lot, and my car right here, the actual sprite model of your car. Like if I change the color to my car, so let's just change this to black. And going over to the testing section, you can kind of see the black overlay with like the rear and the front of the vehicle because of me changing the paint job of my car. So going back to the Cobb, aka this blue color, now the car is all blue. And let's just give it a quick run for the heck of it and see what the track is like. So click on start and through 100 RPM. 40 mile an hour first gear, second gear, 70. I think this is realistic, so third gear we go. 100 mile an hour third gear into fourth gear, into the left-hand turn of this turn 1 and 2 of this track. Fourth gear we go. Let's see what's gear 5. 135. I believe gear 6 is probably like the drafting gear or something like that, or the fuel-saving gear as I call it, where it's probably not going to reach, well, it'll reach its top speed in terms of the top speed that I got rated in Gear 5, so it'll probably just reach top speed at Gear 5, and Gear 6 will be just useless, and first time we brake. And the time we get is a 1 minute 2 seconds, 45 milliseconds. Not that bad. So the last thing I'm going to highlight is the poster mode, which you can see your vehicle that's blacked out with a black, like, it's like a performance thingy here. So on the left-hand side, you can see the top speed, 0 to 60, the type of drivetrain layout, the gearbox, fuel economy, weight, and the engine itself, the dimensions, including the power graphic, the torque and power, right here, right next to the front-hand view of your car. And the top image, it should be like a front view and a back view of the car, like a 3/4 view. So this will be the back view, and this will be the front view of the car. So it's still bugged out at the moment, so let's click on back, and before we export this car to BeamNG.drive with these problems that we got here, such as the front and rear dampers being too hard, the engine has some a lot of unutilized octane, the rear tires are quite light for the chosen tire compound. Let's hop over to BeamNG.drive to see if this gear ratio that I got set up is applicable for BeamNG. So here we are at the map of West Coast USA with the 0.30 update of BeamNG. What the hell happened to my reverse lights? Why are they brake lights? Hold on. They're brake lights. Are you kidding me? Look, they're illuminating. If I turn the headlights, they should be reverse lights, not... Look, no reverse lights. Even if I ram into the thing behind me, the barrier, still no reverse lights. The side view mirror has been flipped. Are you kidding me? Is this like a freaking botched export to BeamNG.drive with this update? You still got more work to do. So might as well re-export this car later, hopefully to get this correct, once I put this into my Discord server, which the link to join is in the description below, where you can get this car for free and download it yourself. So anyways, despite this ordeal, let's start off with the basic performance test with the 0 to 62 acceleration test, followed by the 62 to 0 brake test, and lastly, a top speed run with this wannabe C5 Corvette. So let this LS1 powered wannabe Corvette accelerate right now. Hit the acceleration. Little bit right there, first gear. 50 mile an hour first gear, second gear, 0 to 62, damn near right of 5.74 seconds of 246.53 feet. So they're pretty much right about the 0 to 62 in automation. They were pretty much right about 5.7 seconds. Nice. Automation's actually right for once. So the brakes, 62 to 0 on the way, hitting the brakes. 62 to 0 in 2.63 seconds of 106.80 feet. Well, so 2 pistons up front and 1s in the back. Pretty much the actual OEM, like real-life brakes used on the Corvette. Not that bad brake time and not that bad distance-wise. And there goes my Super Sport Cordova. So for a top speed run already in effect, 5.6 seconds right there. Synchronizer damage. What the hell? We got 1% of gear already damaged in gear number 3. So 100 and got away 20 miles an hour. That was a little bit of a premature upshift. So 5th gear we go, 140 miles an hour. Get on my way, taxi cab. I want to do a top speed run at the moment. So the top speed did claim 175 miles an hour. We're in gear 5. Nope, we're not going to reach it, so crash into the gantry as so, slow it down. I'll probably experiment this, like what were to happen if I were to take this to a wide open area to like really verify its top speed if the top speed is limited in gear 5. So there's a front end crash, brutal front end crash. Let's go to normal time. And the engine is dead for what? No, engine is off. Yeah, engine locked up. Yep, the engine's dead. So Cordova's going to do its thing. The wannabe HHR with the supercharger built in. I think it's naturally aspirated with this current setup. It is still going to do its thing. So for the damage of the vehicle, completely mangled up by crashing into the gantry as so. We got a lot of smoke because the radiator being damaged and elsewhere about the car. Rear's okay, sides mediocre, front not so good. So let's do a time trial run with this vehicle. So here we are at the bottom map of the Nürburgring, and this particular time trial I got loaded up is the full Grand Prix circuit with the chicane of this time trial layout. And it's going to be only just a single lap with a rolling start with this car, the frickin' Lafayette, the Serpent Lafayette to be specific. So let's start things off here and ready? Go. Damn ECS or ESC. I've been saying ECS for so long. I've been saying this for so long for some time. Deja vu. This is a rear-wheel drive car, been in this place before. We're okay. Well, thanks to the ESC for ruining my life. Well, technically that's the traction control for not make me do a wheel spin launch. So stand on the brakes. I'm kind of bitched out right here, even though this is the first time in a long while using this circuit here, especially the Grand Prix circuit with pretty much, yeah. I never even used the Grand Prix circuit whatsoever. It's just a Nordschleife and that's it. So let's make this left-hander. 80-something miles an hour. Still kind of bitch down the corners, but in terms of steering, if you turn in so hard into a corner, especially accelerate into a corner, kind of like I'm doing right here, that's where you start to see the back end kick out, but it does kind of understeer a little bit. It has that boat-like handling because of the large 2.9 meter wheelbase compared to the optimal real-life Corvette-like wheelbase rating of around 2.65 meters, around 2.7. And the top speed we get before our braking marker, 125 miles an hour. Damn, these brakes are pretty strong. So here's the chicane. I had plenty of time to brake. I'm kind of underestimated the brakes of this car, significantly. And here is the final corner. Make this right-hand corner. Don't go to the Nordschleife section of the track. Throttle out. And here we go. So the lap time we're going to get, our only lap time, is 2 minutes, 33 seconds, 461 milliseconds. Not too bad of a first time being at this track here, the Grand Prix portion of the track. So go to free roam and crash straight ahead as fast as we can. So 5th gear. Is it going to do another synchronizer? No, it didn't. So full time as is. What a brutal crash, and the engine is still alive despite being bent at a... let's stand this upright. So the engine, instead of being pointed straight, it's pointed to the right and it's still running. I mean, the exhaust has been clogged up and scrunched up. Same thing for the drive shaft. It's been disconnected. So theoretically, the engine shouldn't run and the wheels should be powered to the rear. If I were to drop the car, is it, control, center click, and then just reverse? What type of black magic is this? Get out of sandpit and get back on tarmac. Am I able to, or am I gonna stay in the tarmac with the BeamNG upshift to downshift cheese? Yep. Pretend it's NASCAR, we're doing donuts. Or one of those street takeover events that a lot of kids are doing on TikTok and Instagram. Pretend this is a four-way intersection, and you see this going around. Where's the cops where you need them? So for the final part of the video, let's go to main menu and spawn at the Car Jump Arena, the brand new Car Jump Arena 2023 model, which is a paid mod that's still in the work of progress. And I'll provide a link to download this mod, also page the mod creator to download this exact map yourself. So take it to the top of the brand new ramp right now. So here we are at the top of the ramp, so we got the green lights that are screaming at my face, so that means we are clear to go, accelerate, thanks ESC for ruining my life, technically, traction control. So 0 to 62, about the same 5.8 seconds, but how about the top speed going down the ramp? We'll be capped at 175, let's see, gear 5, and... no, beyond! 193 is our exit speed, so it's well beyond the top speed that we actually got, so what is going to be our... 520 meters is where we hit the bottom of the ramp. Full time we go, end over end, on our side. God damn, look at the shape of this car. Missed the pond, or the pool, and hit the retaining wall. And it's gonna scream at us that it's a yellow flag or a red flag, a green light all around, because we're not in the sand. So the damage of the car, especially landing awkwardly at around 500 meters, so the sides look okay, but the rear has been pushed up like directly 90 degrees like up, like someone just did a frickin' uppercut in the back end. Same thing with the front end. The front end's been uppercutted to the extreme that you can see the engine right here, including the airbox, the suspension, and everything else with the vehicle. Interesting. So with Automation's version 4.3, the first batch, aka the Ellisbury update, well, finally we got some new features that we've been waiting for a very long time. Especially one of the big ones is the ability to change your gear ratios like freely rather than solely relying on the gear spacing and getting the certain top speed to get a certain gear ratio that you wanted to. Now you can tune the final drive gears 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at a time, like whatever gears that you want to customize, and do all that stuff from there. And even what's also interesting with the engine designer, they have implemented the power density reliability factors so that you are limited to a certain horsepower rating for your engines, including a bunch of other minor features kind of like the suspension toe-in, the CVTs, and everything else in general, including a new track on there, the Ellisbury track. And also about this car here, like you see with the mirrors and the reverse lights, that should be the reverse lights. I will try to fix this car at Automation and try to get this ready, which should be ready, in my Automation Discord if you want to download this car for yourself. So anyways, that'll do with Automation and BeamNG.drive. And for those who are interested in this type of content, please be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on any videos like this in the future. So this is TRIZE Rising Up, and signing out.